So somebody wrote in with a question that I thought I would comment on, because I know many people are quite upset about this. And he said, I wanted to ask for insights into the matter of the situation of the Rohingya in Myanmar, who are mistreated partly in the name of Buddhism. As a Buddhist, I feel that this is deeply wrong and would like to know what we could do as Buddhists to clarify that this is not how we interpret our religion. Is there a way to say, not in my name? Okay, so what's going on is in Myanmar, there's a minority population, I think mostly in the north, of an ethnic group called the Rohingya. And they've been in Myanmar. There's documents that they've been there like since 1799, so they aren't recent immigrants. Yeah, although the Burmese call them immigrants. Yeah, and call them terrorists, which they aren't either of those. So you might remember some months ago there was a big exodus of Rohingya going in boats trying to get to Malaysia or perhaps to Indonesia, and the what do you call it? The scalpers were like deceiving these people, and they had to pay a lot of money to get on boats or go across the Thai border, or the Burmese border into Thailand, and then maybe into Malaysia. And many of them perished at sea, drowned, or they were beaten up, it was horrible what was going on. And what's happened, that happened after the Burmese government confined them to one area. And they're still confined to that area. They're not receiving proper medical care. There's millions of people. There's a lot of Rohingya. It's not just, a few people. There's millions. And not receiving proper medical care. The kids aren't getting education, living in squalid conditions. And I remember some time ago when I was learning about this situation, I saw a video that left me feel totally repulsed of a Buddhist monk, kind of saying that these people are outliers and they're terrorists and they're immigrants and they don't belong here and they're scum and they need to leave. And this kind of thing, when to see a Buddhist monk saying that is just completely like beyond, you can't imagine it. And now what's happening with the Rohingya is there's a mass exodus into Bangladesh. So far, 270,000 people have left Myanmar, fleeing into Bangladesh, which itself is a poor country. The Rohingyas are Muslim, and so that's one of the reasons why the Burmese, who are predominantly Buddhist, consider them foreigners or whatever. So, there's this huge refugee crisis, and then just the crisis within Burma itself. And let's see, I can never pronounce her name correctly. Aung San Suu Kyi. She was a Nobel Peace Prize winner. She herself was in house arrest, I think, for 15 years. Before she was freed, she was given the Nobel Peace Prize, because, of trying to have democracy and peace in Burma. And she's not the elected president, but she's the person behind everything now. And so many of the former Nobel Peace Prize winners or recipients have spoken out against what she's doing. I know His Holiness, the Dalai Lama, back some months ago when this whole thing of them fleeing by sea happened, he contacted her and, asked her, please, change that policy. And Bishop Tutu recently said to her, "My dear sister, if the political price of your ascension to the highest office in Myanmar is your silence, the price is surely too steep." You know, and she herself has called them terrorists and illegal immigrants. And the situation is so severe that some people are saying it's crimes against humanity. Yeah, because hundreds have been killed in the fleeing and also by soldiers going into the Rohingya area. And San Suu Kyi blamed the aid groups for spreading misinformation to help the terrorists. So this is like, the thing is for her, you know, to speak from a Buddhist viewpoint would be politically disastrous. But what is going on in this country where these people who are Buddhists are holding such biased, uncompassionate views against other people living in their own country? Yeah. So what can we do about it? Personally, I don't know anybody in Myanmar to contact to say something. I have some friends in Singapore who do aid work in Myanmar. Perhaps they might know. I think also calling the Burmese embassy in Washington, D.C. and expressing, you know, our disapproval of this, and just making it known publicly that these kind of actions and this kind of prejudice is an ethnic thing, yeah, and it is. These people are not acting out of Buddhist principles. They're acting completely against what the Buddha himself taught. So, you know, this is not a Buddhist action. It is not condoned by Buddhists. And we have to make that very, very clear to the world, and especially to the people and the leadership in Myanmar, that, you know, as people who are trying to practice the compassion that the Buddha taught, and what the Buddha said about hatred is not solved by hatred, it's only solved by love, you know, to remind them of that if we can. So I recommend we call the Burmese embassy. I think together as the Abbey, is there a volunteer who would write a letter and then we can all sign it? Yeah, well, we have several volunteers. Okay, well, the four of you work it out, okay? And then all of us can sign it as a group. And then I can write to a couple of the people that I know who are in contact with Buddhist aid groups. These are small Buddhist organizations in Singapore that help, like Firefly, and you know, and our friends work with the schools. We can write to them and see if they know somewhere where we can write. And then if we find the people, if they know people we can write to, we can give the people online and this person who wrote to ask the question, the address. In the meantime, you know, we can certainly do the taking and giving meditation for the pain not only of the Rohingya, but also for the destructive karma being created by the Burmese, the people in Myanmar, who advocate this kind of, you know, bias and prejudice of an innocent group. Yeah, because they're creating horrible karma that they'll have to experience the result of in the future. So to pray, you know, and do the taking and giving both for the perpetrators as well as for the victims of this. Because perpetrators and victims, in one life become switched in the next life. Yeah? Okay.
Cordial greetings and reverent salutations, Venerable. I have studied this issue several years ago when it first surfaced, and I do not deny that atrocities are taking place. There certainly is. But there is another dimension to the ongoing conflict. As you stated, it is certainly ethnic and not religious. This religious factor of Buddhist versus Muslim is something that came far later, and it has nothing to do with the religion at all. There was actually an article published by a Pakistani Muslim journalist called "Social Media is Lying to You" about the ethnic cleansing in Burma. Basically, the first news about the supposed oppression of Buddhists against Muslims in Myanmar was distributed through social media, primarily Facebook. And every single photo of the supposed atrocities committed by Buddhist monks against the minority there was actually photos taken from completely different sources, like earthquake victims. They actually used photos of Tibetan monks rescuing earthquake victims, and they lied on social media saying this was Burmese monks killing people. I mean, complete lies.
Now, why would somebody do that? Why would somebody lie and put out false photos?
Well, this is the danger of social media, because a lot of news circulates today on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, Google, and people take this directly at face value without verifying the resources. So this Pakistani Muslim journalist wrote a whole article. He said, yes, there is something going on there, but we have to be very careful because all these photos and information that's circulating is disinformation and straight, deliberate lies.
Yeah.
And this is dangerous because it creates more fans' flames of hatred.
So what we basically wind up with is a situation. We don't know if this Pakistani guy is telling the truth either. Yeah.
Yes.
So that's why we have to do more research from all angles, because one says this is happening, the other says that is happening, and so we have to see where the truth is actually coming from.
And there is one more dimension, if I may add, which the media does not speak of. It was actually some Muslim lady, a Burmese Muslim lady, and she's talking about how it was a lot of foreigners who were doing massacres against the Muslims there. She actually said this, and she was one of the thousands of Muslim ethnic minority there who sought refuge in Buddhist temples. So there's actually a lot of Buddhist monks and monasteries in Myanmar who are protecting the Muslim ethnic minorities there. And I actually spoke to some ethnic Burmese Muslims, not Rohingya, but ethnic Burmese Muslims about the situation. And they told me that they had never had such a thing before. So this is definitely something new, and I believe we have to look at also the compassion that many Burmese Buddhist monks are doing to help protect the minorities too, not just these few ones who may have robes but are not following Dharma at all.
Okay, so we've known actually for a long time that the Burmese government, there's many other minorities in Burma, and they have not always been treated well historically by the Burmese government. So while I respect what you said, I personally would want more sources and to check those, because hearsay, as we know, one of the problems is that the Burmese government isn't letting journalists in. Yeah, but Nicholas Kristof, who writes for the Times, and the Times is very good about checking sources. Yeah, and so I tend to, what I have said, I took from Nicholas Kristof's article. So I tend to trust that, but you have other sources, so we need to check and continue to evaluate to see what is actually happening. Certainly if we get reports from Thailand and Malaysia, that refugees are fleeing in there. And also from when people were escaping by boat, those stories I heard from journalists, not on Facebook. Yeah. So I think those, can be quite reliable. I tend to trust the New York Times because they really they take care with their sources.
Yes, thank you very much, Venerable. I just believe that the situation due to a few years ago of social media flaming the flames, I think fanning the flames has led to a worsening due to the social media. I believe it has led to a worsening of the situation over the past few years. And that's why I think social media, as you explained, can be actually quite dangerous, like Facebook and all these sources on the internet.
Yeah.
Thank you
Yeah,
very
okay.
much.
Thank you. Yeah.
People who are concerned about the issue, they can also write their representatives in Congress or the members of the Foreign Relations Committee and Foreign Affairs Committee, because the State Department does have programs to help Rohingya refugees, and they've had them for decades. It's just, it hasn't been a high priority issue. But if they were to get inquiries from Congress as to, what are they doing to help these people, I think it might bump it up.
Yeah.
So write to Congress about it too.
Yeah. Said by somebody who used to work for the State Department. But are some of these programs ones that Trump is cutting? Because I know he's cutting a lot of the funds to help other countries.
I have no idea.
You don't know?